Hello, Map friends. I hope that you're all doing delightfully well this evening. I feel like I'm British, so I have to tell you about the weather. It's my immediate instinct is to tell you that it's been raining here today and it's been a bit chilly. Um, and every time people say to me, "But Eve, don't you live in Spain?" I'm like, well, that's exactly why I'm telling you that it's raining, because I came here for the sunshine, and whenever it's not 40 degrees and just glorious weather, I just get very confused. So yeah, how are we all doing today? I hope that you've had a nice, relaxing Sunday. Um, I haven't really been up to that much today. Um, my partner is Spanish, and therefore it's in his DNA, just as it's in mine to talk about the weather, to be able to make a fantastic paella. So we had one of those, which has kind of become a Sunday tradition, I would say. And I tried a new type of tea, which was wild. I don't know if I've said this before, but despite being English and the stereotypes surrounding our consumption of tea, is that I'm actually not that big of a fan of tea. In fact, hot beverages in general aren't really my thing. But I tried this one. It was called Marrakesh style. So it wasn't Marrakesh tea from Marrakesh. It was Marrakesh style. So I'm not really sure exactly what it was. And to be honest, even having drunk it, I'm still not completely sure. But it was very, very tasty. And I've been listening to the new audiobook that I purchased. I feel like it's now my obligation to tell you what I'm listening / reading at the moment. And it's The Promised Land, the autobiography of Barack Obama, which is absolutely fascinating. But today you didn't come here to listen to me jabber about tea. Today you came here to listen to Map Chats. Now today I'm very excited because for Map Chats number 12, we've actually got something a little bit different. Now, as you may know, if you've watched my other Map Chats, that normally I talk to fellow cartographers, but today I'm going to be talking to Gabriel, who's actually one of my lovely clients who I've worked with quite recently. And I just thought that I would really love to share his project with you all, and talk a bit more about the Dungeons and Dragons stuff, generally about world building, because that's something that I'm interested in. And he obviously knows a lot about it too. So, and he's just such a lovely person, as you'll be able to see in a minute. So I'm just going to add him in, and we can.
Hello, are we in? Are we on the internet?
We are on the internet.
Wonderful. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I am fantastic today. The sun is finally shining again. Can you
Can you
hear me
say?
well enough?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. There might be a little delay.
Yeah,
So if I just sort of stop and look at you, it's just because I'm making sure that you've finished talking. I don't want to interrupt you. But I was saying you can send some sunshine our way because it's been grim the last few days here.
Oh
And I,
no.
oh,
Well,
it's
thank
like
you so much
virtual.
for having me on your map chat. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Well, I'm very excited to have you here. It's lovely to see your face again, and I'm really excited
Absolutely.
to be able to talk more with you about your project, and you can share with us all your creative genius. And yeah, just generally have like a little chit chat. So,
Absolutely.
if you wouldn't mind kind of introducing yourself, and how you came to be involved in Dungeons and Dragons and involved with me in a project.
Absolutely. So my name is Gabriel Miller. I'm based out of the United States, in Kentucky, our state here. I have been playing Dungeons and Dragons since 1997. It is my literally oldest relationship. It is my longest successful relationship. We go through tumultuous times as we are younger.
Yeah.
Uh, I was a kid with a fantastical mind and looking to not be involved in the things I was around and looking for an escape. And so I found it through Dungeons and Dragons. And that led me to a myriad of other storytelling opportunities. I play role-playing games kind of across the gambit, everything from silly little games like Honey Heist to more dramatic and in-depth games like Vampire the Masquerade, or all of the gambit of potential Dungeons and Dragons options as well. So I have been dorking it up pretty hard actually for a long time.
Last for a long time.
But I am a member of a relatively new group called the Forever DMs. We in Dungeons and Dragons, you have the dungeon master who is the storyteller, the narrator,
Yeah.
and we started last year running a charity event for a charity here in the United States called Extra Life. It is a charity event specifically for kids, and we chose the Norton's Children's Hospital, which is here in Louisville, Kentucky, as our beneficiary. And our goal was really ambitious. We were going to raise $1,000. We wound up raising 2,000. We were the fourth largest group within that particular event for our state, which was wonderful.
That's so
Uh,
good.
but that formed this odd coalition of uh, a bunch of storytellers. We were all storytellers or dungeon masters in various games, and we all bring that perspective that okay, we have to create as well as just react and play in our games. And so it started this live stream. We have two different games that get live streamed and a talk show we're experimenting with. We've done a couple episodes of, and we just last night recorded a one shot that will release this coming Tuesday night.
Ooh,
So we're finding ways to play D&D amidst the global pandemic we're all struggling with right now, and it has become the Forever DMs has kind of become this entity. We reached a affiliate status on Twitch, which is like the first benchmark near overnight, which was phenomenal,
that's great.
and it has just grown. And so the game that I am running is set in a world called Thrain, and I dabble, we're going to say, and be really generous with doodling my own maps. And eventually I got to a point where, no, I want this clean and professional and beautiful. And I've been following you for a while at that point, and I just said, no, this is something I want. And so now I have this original piece of artwork in my home.
Oh, I'm so happy to see it finally there.
And we've got it scanned into our games as we're playing digitally right now. And I'm going to print out a copy for all of my players and give that to them eventually as well. And it's phenomenal. I'm so grateful for the piece of art that you have provided us, and so grateful to be here.
Well, I'm really grateful that you chose me, and I'm so happy that something that I've created is able to contribute to such an awesome project. I
Thank
think
you so
it's been
much.
just, yeah, really like kind of mutually beneficial and creative, and working with you was so easy and wonderful. So yeah,
Thank you
thank
very
you. Thank you for that. So could you tell us more about your world building? Like you personally, how you build as a group of DMs.
Sure.
Do you start big, go small, go big?
So I lovingly say I walk the line between soft and hard world building. So soft world building is there was a war, it happened, and now we're after the war, and that's all you get. I'm kind of shrinking down the explanation for
Yeah,
sure here. And then hard world building as well. Prince Charles of Frist invaded the Korean Empire, who in return got, we can map out every little detail of that war that happened.
yeah,
Well, for me, soft world building is not enough, and hard world building is way too much. So I try to find a happy medium. So for this particular project, when we were getting ready to start this game, I had already created a bit of a part of the world called the Hrodran Plains. And these were actually an inspiration from a previous player character in another game. Andrew was the player. Andrew created this whole plains culture that his character was from the aftermath of. And I said, well, that's really cool. How about we take that and yank it out and drop it somewhere else,
Drop it in, yeah.
sprinkle some Mongolian feel on top of it, and go from there. And so the world started with the Harodran Plains, and so all of the cultures around it were kind of in reaction to it. It's like, okay, I have a very nomadic, tribal-based, matriarchal society. So what is something nearby that's going to be in juxtaposition to that? And so these different bits of culture started evolving from these different places around the map face. And for a little bit of clarification, the map face for me, the map that even I worked on is basically the distance of Edinburgh to Rome. So we're talking like a large span of
Pretty
country.
big.
We can cross it in a couple of months, but in fantasy world, but it's a large swath. So we're not getting down into the microcosm of what every little village is. So my next step after that is I have a basic setup. So there is a fractured empire here that we're going to call the warring states, and then there's these three little city states over here that are really closely related and very Romeo and Juliet and Fair Verona, where our scene lay, and I've got this other culture down here. Okay, so now I talk to my players, and this is the really fun part about Dungeons and Dragons for me, is collaborative storytelling. And Eve has left a huge collaborative imprint on this as well. Everyone I interact with is adding a piece of the puzzle. For instance, there is a isolated elven culture that they're really kind of xenophobic and they don't interact with other people. And so I had a player who was interested in playing from them. And I said, okay, cool. What does it look like? Here's some bullet points. Here is you have a caste-based society. The nobles are not nearly as powerful as they used to be, and they pretend that they are. Here are some bullet points, and now what's your story look like? So interacting with those player characters as they're beginning to create their story fleshes out the culture of the region, which also fleshes out the geography of the region, which is going to kind of bring us back into where Eve played a huge piece. You worked with me beautifully with, okay, so this is a really southern climate. We're really close to what would be in our world Antarctica, so it's fairly cold. So how do we have these warm pockets? Okay, so we've got geothermal activity. I can do this for hours. I'm sorry.
No, this is great. This is why I want you to come on talk to us all about.
So looking at real world geothermics, where do fault lines lay? How do they manifest in our geography? So we have a line of dormant volcanoes that is basically a mountain range running across what would be a fault line. And so with working with Eve, we kind of diagonally drew a line across the map, and this is this fault line. This is where all these mountains are. Yep, right there. Ta-da! You even got some flat-topped ones in there that make them look like dormant volcanoes, and it's lovely. And so we have this
favorite part of the map. I like the too. I like the little swampy bits, but
yes, the warring states
was really cool.
So we've got this line of mountains here. Well, they continue up. So we've got this island just past it. I wanted an island kind of opening up into the sea. Okay, well, it's at the end of a mountain range that is a fault line. So that in turn tells me that, okay, there was a volcano there at one point because that created the mountain. So I love to this is where it kind of leans into the hard world building aspect a little bit.
Yeah,
I loved, okay, so how does this work geographically? There was a big event that happened. The world was shaken up and fault lines moved, and it was a near climatic event. Uh, so, how does the world react physically, the
yeah.
world? And I like to base a lot of that in real world geographics.
How do you
And
feel about kind of this mixture of fantasy geography? This idea that you can have floating mountains, all this kind of stuff, and then also using real world principles in maps, like from a world building and dungeon mastering point of view. How do you feel about that?
I think they work perfectly together. Uh, you can have, we have this fault line and these dormant volcanoes, and that's great. But then on that island, we have the volcano that has been mined by dwarves and is now like repurposed and rebuilt, and the magma is being used in industrial ways. So you can have both aspects.
Yeah,
The floating mountains is a great example. Like, how does that happen? Well, that doesn't happen on Terra, but that's okay. Maybe the mountain range underneath it projects this fantastical force. So you can build both ways. I'd like to look at it. Great example, the map of Middle Earth. Uh, the really, really famous map. We've all seen it at some point if you have researched
yeah,
any sort of fantastical map. The mountain range around Mordor is a
yeah.
box.
It's a bit off.
That will not happen in natural geography. But that's okay. We've
Yeah,
already suspended disbelief because there are elves and dragons,
yeah,
and there is this evil character whose soul lives on in a ring. We are
yeah,
suspending disbelief to play Dungeons and Dragons. So we are already accepting that there will be magic, there will be fantastical elements to this world that
yeah.
cannot be explained with real world physics.
Yeah. And how would you say that how do you think the maps in general and the one that I did for you, how does that fit into your gameplay? Did the map kind of come first, or not necessarily in this campaign, but in general, would you say the map comes first, or does the map come after you've done some world building?
For me, I think they're hand in hand. Uh, I I can conceptualize a lot of things. I have the map in my head, so to say, but as I storytell with my players and interact, my wife is literally my whiteboard. Like we bounce ideas off each other all day long. Uh, Great example. She is not a super uh, intuitive learner when it comes to visualization. She has to see it drawn out. And so those were the original sketches that I sent you. So, okay, I'm thinking about where these maps are. Here's the coastline. And so to me, that is such an important part of creating the world.
Yeah.
Uh, great example. Let's look at the Saharan desert. I cannot drop a culture derived off of woodland living in the middle of the Saharan desert.
Yeah, that would be
So,
difficult.
so the culture of a region reflects the geography, and that is so normal and natural in our world as it is. Here in the States, if we look back to our indigenous peoples, uh, living across the plains, and then other tribes of Native Americans lived in mountainous regions, and their lifestyles were completely different
Yeah.
because of the geography they lived in. And we see it all across the world in all different cultures.
Yeah.
So I don't think the way I kind of macro world build that I could do one without the other. I have to have a map to work with. Even if it is my horrible doodle on a piece of paper that I send to you and
Trust
go,
me, your doodles were
make
perfectly
it pretty.
adequate. Well, no, trust me, your doodles were really quite good in the scheme of things.
Thank you kindly.
So how do you go about kind of collating your world building? Do you write it all out by hand? Do you use things like, I think it was called World Anvil? I think there's other ones as well, kind of these digital online storytelling information stations. I don't really know what to call them.
Yeah, there are lots and lots of great options out there. But to this day, this is my favorite tool. Uh, uh, this is a previous campaign. I have little notepads falling out of it all over the place. Um,
Old school.
I
I
I like
approve.
to thank you. I like to storytell with bullet points. So going into the story, there are more fleshed out documents often. I like Google Documents as a great example because I can share that with my player and then they can comment back as we collaboratively create the world or the area of the world that they are residing in. But when it comes to actually storytelling, it's all bullet points because I want the wiggle room to say, okay, they need to meet a gnomish shopkeep named Sandy. Uh, and in our few recent episodes here, they met Sandy, and she's a relaxed kind of guy or kind of gal, and she's really generous, and everybody loves her. But then I improv'd her mom that was in the shop with her senile old mother. Uh, I want the flexibility to be able to create those little improvisational moments. And actually bringing that back to world building, I think the same goes there. We may have this document that I have shared back and forth with the player, say from this town, from Schema. Um, and I've got the basic bullet points and they know kind of roughly the shops that are around and they've been there their whole lives. But I want some flexibility. I want to be able to make stuff up as I go, or
Yeah.
let's say I've got a wizard that they need to meet, and they don't go to the wizard's tower. Well, I guess I'll just grab him and put him somewhere else.
Put it somewhere else.
Yeah. So lots of improvisational storytelling that comes from having just those bullet points. Now,
Yeah.
you did mention World Anvil is a super popular software right now, and I very much see its value. And maybe it's that kind of stuck in the mud old school mentality that's like, I like my piece of paper. and
Yeah. And I guess you have it's although having something online is technically more accessible because you can get to it from a technological device wherever you are, I find that obviously then you have to like go to the website, you have to log in, you have to go through that. Whereas a notebook, to me, it feels more organic. It's the same way I feel about when I'm drawing. The reason I haven't like jumped into the digital sphere is that I much prefer that more like tactile experience of writing down, drawing my thoughts and feelings onto paper. And
Absolutely.
also it must be much easier kind of like just taking out your notebook and it's there, the information that you had is there rather than having to go to another place to get it, if that makes sense.
It does. And I actually kind of find that it ebbs and flows the more I think about it. Pre-pandemic era, I was leaning far more heavily into digital tools. And as we have had to transition to playing online because, I can't see my friends as safely, uh, that having a physical thing there, rolling the physical dice rather than digital dice, or writing on a physical piece of paper provides a sense of closeness or community that I feel like I'm missing doing everything purely digital.
Yeah.
And so my previous campaign that I ran, the notebook I held up a moment ago was my in-game bullet points. And then I had the world building documents were digital. And I've kind of found that is a bit of a hybrid. And the more I think about it, this recent campaign that we started is kind of running on that same model.
Yeah.
So to very, very roundabout answer your original question,
No,
Uh,
it's really good because it's something I haven't actually played a whole lot of D&D, but it's something that I wonder about. And I see a lot of people, like larger figures in the community, having promotions and stuff for this World Anvil, and I mean, it sounds really great, and definitely for people who use that kind of stuff, it must be very useful for them. But for me, like, I love notebooks. I mean, any excuse to buy a notebook, right? I just
yeah.
like, yes, please.
As I look over at my stack of notebooks at the end of the table, one for each game, one for different colors for different characters. Um, yeah, I'm right there with you. And there are so many great tools out there. World Anvil being just a tip of the iceberg. World Anvil is focused on world builders. We use because we are playing digitally. We use a program called Astral Tabletop, and they've been very, very kind to us. One of the members of our group is a world builder for them, so he creates a lot of the content that you see there, and that has created a digital tabletop that we can play on. So we're moving tokens instead of moving actual miniatures on the table. But
Yeah.
uh, because of that experience, having something physical that I can touch, the dice, or there's a my phone is actually leaned up against a tarot deck that is a part of one of my characters. Uh, those physical tools are so important right now.
Yeah. Would you say, like, do you have any specific places that you go to gather like resources, information that you use to world build? Like for me, I quite often will go on Pinterest before I want to start a map and kind of create like a mood board of like the feeling that I want the map to have, etc. But I don't know if you would do a similar thing, not necessarily with Pinterest, but with another thing, books, etc.
Oh, I'm a Pinterest king. It
You've
is
got the
such a
bug.
great, yeah, it's such a great tool. It started with like remodeling house areas, and then it's
It easily
devolved
slips
into,
into other areas.
yeah, it's devolved into nothing but like Arabian elves and fantasy horses and like dragons. It's just gone off the rails, and floating cities in the sky.
As you
Uh,
do.
right, but it is a more specific Google search, in my opinion. I want to find images of a fantasy mountain landscape. I can type that in and get a dozen images that I can draw from for inspiration. And for our games, we actually use what we refer to as mood art. We'll find art online and find something that fits the mood of what we're trying to convey in a scene. And we will use that to the best of our ability anyway. And Pinterest has been such a great resource for stuff like that. Uh, but with world building specifically, I like to know a lot about a culture of a region and try to make things as authentic as I can so that it feels plausible.
Yeah.
And then geography is the same way. I mentioned that fault line. How do we follow this? How do dormant volcanoes work? How do dormant mountain ranges work? Uh, so I like to understand the physics of how something happens. A bluff line where a higher elevation drops into a cliff and then drops into a forest floor. Like, how does that happen and why? So I'll find those real world resources. The United States Geological Survey has a pretty solid website for researching that kind of thing. And then you can also find a myriad of solutions on the internet as well.
Yeah.
And they providing a real world context to then jump the shark with for and jump off the diving board for a fantastical twist on it. So the internet is an absolutely fantastic resource.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is great. Also, a massive wormhole. You go in
Speaking
and you
of
don't know what
Pinterest,
you're going to find.
speaking of Pinterest,
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say that, I mean, this is maybe a silly question, but do you prefer being a DM or a player?
that is a tough one. I don't know that I have an answer to that question.
I mean, you
In
can be both, I guess.
Agreed. I think I get a lot of fulfillment and joy from being able to create and collaboratively create with my players. But there is a sense of joy of focusing just on one character and that character's journey.
Yeah.
One of our other GMs in the group, we're all GMs in the Forever DMs, but one of the other storytellers is running a game on Saturdays called Breakfast and Dragons. And
Yeah, I saw the image for that. It was adorable. I was like,
yeah,
that
it is
dragon has
the
an egg on its
darkest
head.
game. It is, and it's laying on a bed of bacon. That is
Oh, I
the
didn't notice the
darkest
bed of
game.
bacon.
It is the darkest game for such a cute little image. But I'm playing a character in that game named Ben Yahim Kalem. And Ben Yahim is in the point in the story where we are right now. Ben Yahim can't ignore his trauma anymore. He is a wizard who is, because fantasy here, he is trapped out of space and time.
Oh dear.
And,
Oh,
and
what's
was
the
trapped.
predicament?
Yeah, he projected his soul into the dreamlands, and then while he was gone, his whole world was destroyed. So it fits canonically in the arc of this world that my buddy Bill has created. And so Ben Yahim eventually found a way back. It took him, 3,000 years, no big deal. And
Pretty chill, really.
right, it's just a vacay. It's fine. Uh, so it's like he left on vacation and his house burned down, and now he's seeing it for the first time. But
Yeah.
he conceptually knew that this happened, but he is now being forced to deal with it. He can't ignore it. He can't suppress the trauma
That
now.
must be quite hard to swallow. Not bacon and eggs, some might
No, it's
say.
not. It is one of my favorite games that I've ever played in, and this particular character is my. If I had to pick a favorite character I've ever played right now, it's him. Uh, but that I'm getting animated just talking about it.
Yeah, no, I can feel. I
I
feel it.
feel it. Uh, so there is a palpable joy in getting to play a character. And I also derive the same joy from being able to storytell and create and paint a scene. I'm a fairly animated individual, and I love storytelling. I love narrating a scene, narrating, okay, what does this cliffside look like and why? Uh, you know, players walk into an herbalist shop and the assault of smells and scents and,
Almost
how is it laid
sensory
out?
storytelling. Yeah.
Yeah. And the only tool I have is my words. So there's a joy that I get from that. So again, back to the question that I don't think I could do one without the other.
No, I think that's great, and I think probably both sides of it gives you experience to do the other one, right? So
I agree.
they go
I
hand in
absolutely
hand.
agree.
Wow, I feel really bad for your character now. I hope that he recovers from his trauma.
I think he'll be fine. There's
He'll be okay. Okay. Whew.
yeah, he's got
No,
he's
I've
got a
got
good
trauma
support network.
from his trauma.
He's got a good support network. He's working through it with his people.
He sounds very responsible.
He's got a
He's got
emotional support
self-care
cat.
sorted.
Yeah.
Awesome. So could you tell us just a little bit more about how your gaming setup actually works? Because I know a lot of people are being forced to play from home, etc. How did it work before and how it works now?
Sure.
How do you like it? Better, worse, different?
Different is definitely a good way to start. So we were playing at one of our Forever DM's houses, and this was over a year ago now, and it was a kind of a diaspora of who the group is now. And eventually we started playing a game that I lovingly called our COVID campaign. It started with just the goofiest characters in the world chasing down a plague dragon named DVOC, which is COVID backwards. Uh,
Ah,
and
clever.
it devolved into an argument, a narration and a series of adventures and struggles based on United States politics over the last year.
Ah,
Um, so you can imagine that's rife with material,
heated.
uh, to say the least. But throughout the course of that very goofy slapstick story we told, we meshed really well. And we decided we ran a one shot in a science fiction universe in September, and we said, hey, this works really well. Let's try something. And so we tried our Extra Life event, that charity event last year, and it went off swimmingly. And so now we've kind of evolved into this, okay, let's stream and see what happens. And the aftermath of what that looks like, I'll show you. Um, because I am sitting at my desk right now. Take my little stand off the desk here that I'm using. This is what that
It's
looks
a lot of
like
screens.
now.
Wow. That's really cool, though.
It has evolved, to say the least.
Yeah.
Uh, we sitting and playing at the screen, as I mentioned, having the physical dice, really important. Uh, Apologies for my slightly untidy desk at the moment.
It's okay. I
Uh,
think everybody's houses are slightly untidy when they're in them all the time.
Dude, you're not kidding. It's all right. It's
Plus, if
Sunday.
you've got pets, which I know that you do, like they like to just do what they do.
Oh, they're in the other room being mad at me because I put up the gate because we were having this conversation. So
Don't never put up the gate. Like keep the gate open always.
they were being a little rambunctious.
No, to be fair, I've put my cat in the other room because I know that he'll just sit at the door and go, meow, meow,
Yeah,
feed me.
yeah. But playing online, I had a couple of screens already, and I, over the course of last year, upgraded my computer and said, okay, so let's just set these up and make it work. And got a nicer microphone, got a ring light, got a webcam, and little pieces over time. And my father likes to joke that I could launch a space shuttle from here because I have two screens and
There's a
another
lot
one
of
up
screens.
here. But I'll project the the virtual tabletop we're playing on one screen and the webcams off of Discord on another screen so I can see everybody's faces. And then I'll use the third screen to have either a character sheet open or if I am running the stream, I'll have Streamlabs up on that third screen. So there's always something going on. There's always kind of a variety of things happening. And it saves from having to switch back and forth between windows. Like, okay, I need to go back. Wait, what's my character able to do? And oh shoot, I want to see what this person's face is
Yeah.
doing while they're saying this really emotionally derived line. And how do we do all of that on one little like laptop screen? And so we have players in our group that still play off of a single screen, and we have some of us that
You've got
had
more than one screen.
yeah, or we have a digital tabletop, so it's a TV folded down and with all the outer shell pieces taken off of it and put into a box with plexiglass on top of it to use as a board
That's
to
fancy.
play. Yeah, we're
That's
dorks.
fancy.
We're dorks, but
I love it though. 10 out of 10 for
one-
effort.
thank you. One of the other GMs, he's actually just flipped that up and used that as another monitor now, because why not? So that's what our setup looks like right now. When the ability to play in person rolls back around, I think that's a future us problem.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us are willing to address that right now. Just
No.
doing this right now and making it run smoothly is enough work that we're all
Keeps
kind
you
of
occupied.
we're all kind of dreading the idea of having to change it again. like, okay, so then we need to get cameras and oh shoot, do we even want to do that? Like, what does this look like?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that I get to run one game online, play in another game online with this group, and then there's actually a third group that I get to bomb in on from time to time and just play with no stress, no cameras, no audience, no nothing, and that's always really refreshing as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it kind of leads into my like question that I wanted to ask about where you see the project going, like not necessarily changing to in person, but how you see it growing, potentially changing. Um,
Yeah.
where you,
So for the Forever DMs, we started this out with a charity event, and that's where we want to keep it. Even I mentioned we made affiliate status on Twitch, uh, and we're literally just trying to pay for Streamlabs and a website that will go up eventually, and that kind of stuff. And literally everything else, any events we run, any fundraisers we run, any of that at this point is all focused towards charity. So we're working with Extra Life year round. That's kind of our go-to right now to support the Children's Hospital here in Louisville, Kentucky. We're doing some research on another charity that is specifically focused on disabled gamers. And one of our members runs a D&D club for his school. He is a middle school, I think it's eighth grade. He's going to kill me if I get that wrong. But he's an eighth grade social studies teacher. And so he runs a club teaching kids this at his school. And
that's
so
really
there's
cool.
another potential avenue there to give back. D&D has been so important in all of our lives, but just as a window for myself, D&D has helped me through the hardest times in my life. Really traumatic, difficult periods where I wasn't able to actively seek out friends at game. The way back to the light, so to say, was with D&D. I am prior military in the United States Army, and while in Iraq, we play Dungeons and Dragons. I have pictures to prove it.
Yeah.
Like that's just one of those, this has been a part of my life for a long, long time. And it is the ability to escape, the ability to create, the ability to storytell. And I know some of my colleagues in this group feel very, very similarly. And
Yeah.
so taking that experience and giving it back, we're not looking to make a bunch of money. We're not, there is a group out of the United States called Critical Role. Just about everybody in the chat has heard of it,
Yeah.
I'm sure. They're a phenom at this point. They are incredible. We're not looking to rival them. That's not what we're here for. We are here to play games and tell stories, and then find ways to donate and give to charity. And it's
I think
been
that's
so incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, it just sounds wonderful.
Thank
I'm so
you.
glad that you've been able to like be part of that group. And like it sounds just really wonderful. I mean,
It has been a phenomenal experience. And to be honest, the creation of this world and the story that is now developing and being told here within this fantastical setting that we are working with is very much in part thanks to you for the creation of the map that has helped us visualize what's going on.
well, I'm just really glad that you liked it, and I'm glad that it's got there safely and everything. So yeah, it's just so great. I'm just like
Wonderful.
really enthusiastic about your project.
Thank
Um,
you so much.
I think that's all of the questions I had like about the project in general. I did just want to ask like if you have any other hobbies other than D&D that either relate to D&D or are just completely like for funsies.
Sure. I like to create. Um, I much like storytelling, creating a world, creating a story. I like to create things, and I love to be able to see it physically in front of me. So like the next project on my desk is building a new desk, uh, working with a local lumber yard and planing the boards and literally creating a desk from scratch.
That's so
Uh,
cool. Don't
I
get any splinters.
I'm sure I'll get a few. Uh, I am also a leather crafter. I love to carve and stitch leather. I dabble at miniature painting, which ties directly into games because we can use those miniatures within our games. Uh, I have had dozens and dozens and dozens of hobbies throughout my life, and
Would
this last year has actually taught me to try to have a few less.
that's interesting you mentioned about the leathercraft. Like I saw a video the other day. There's a YouTube channel called Nerd Forge, and the girl she made this whole suit of armor out of leather, and I was like,
That's
that's I
fantastic.
didn't even know you could do that.
Absolutely, you absolutely can. But pre-pandemic, professionally, I am a massage therapist who focuses mostly with working with athletes. Here in Louisville, Kentucky, I've been honored enough to get to work with the U of L swim team from time to time, and that's been just absolutely incredible. There are members of that team who are Olympians, and that has been such a cool honor to be a part of. Uh, I'm not sure what's going to happen post-pandemic.
Nobody does.
Right, and
It's so unknown.
there's almost a freeing uh, feeling to that. Um, there's anxiety and everything that comes with that for sure, but there's a almost freeing feeling that comes with that for me at least. To okay, well, I really like to create things. I really like to help and to heal and to give back. So what are ways that I can do that? And so there's been a whole lot of soul searching here in the last few months about, well, what does tomorrow look like? And the things I know for certain are it involves storytelling and it involves creating things. I can get lost on YouTube watching craftsmen at their trade. It's phenomenal. So I'm going to reach out to some of the local woodworkers and be like, hey, can I just come watch for a little while? Maybe pick up a skill or two. You don't have to pay me, just, a little bit of time. And, maybe that can parlay into a second career or I don't know.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities, right?
Yeah, the absolute joy of being able to uh, just not know what comes next. And again, there's some anxiety and some apprehension that comes with that. But being able to sit back and say, okay, let's embrace this with open arms and see what happens.
Yeah.
So as I said, it will definitely involve storytelling. It will definitely involve creation and uh, some sort of giving back. And we'll see where it goes.
That's wonderful. I think your optimistic attitude is very admirable. I hope that some of those vibes like go out to everybody because I think everybody could do with some cool Gabriel vibes right now.
I don't know that I would call myself that cool, but I'm a
I
dork
would.
and I am grateful to be able to share my stories with other people. And if that helps somebody, I'm here for it.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much. I think that's all that we've got time for today. But thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much
much
for
for
coming
having
on.
me.
And I will put some links down in the description thing of your Twitch and a link to the charity maybe that you're supporting, the Extra Life, so that people can search it out for themselves.
Absolutely. And all of that stuff can be found on our Twitch page. So it is, because just to make sure I don't say the wrong thing, uh, so it is twitch.tv/foreverdmsdms. So all of that information about our various social medias and the charities that we work with, as well as our schedule, are all available there.
That's perfect. Well, if you could send me a link to that and then I will put it in the
Absolutely.
description so everyone can come and follow you on there.
That would be lovely.
That's perfect. Well, thank you so much. And I hope that you have a good rest of the day. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's been great to see you again. Hopefully I'll
It's
get
good
to
to see
speak to
you
you
too.
again soon.
Have a great day.
Adios!